Part 101. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 1001. Chapter 1001 Sweetness belonging to two people too. Originally she wanted to continue to pretend that she was fine, but Tanyu's sudden hug and a simple sentence "don't be brave" caused the last stronghold in her heart to collapse. She could no longer control the sadness in her heart and vented it out with tears. "Why are you so bad? Why do you want to make me sad? Do you like to see me cry so much?" Jian-Yuman made fists with both hands and beat his chest repeatedly to vent her inner pride. Her strength was not very strong and she did not intend to hurt Tanyuj in the first place. The strength in her hand was like a feather. Not only did it not make Tanyuj feel any pain, but it was like the feathers teasing his chest, causing him to feel uncomfortable. There were ripples in his heart, feeling comfortable and uncomfortable at the same time, more like the feeling of relief from the two heavens of ice and fire. "I am your old gangster, I always like to do things that make you cry." The smile on Tanyuj's mouth became sweeter, and he put his hands around her arms, feeling the truest emotions between them. Fortunately, I didn't wear makeup today," Jian-Yuman cried and argued with Tanyuj, unwilling to admit defeat. "Yeah. It's a good thing you didn't put on makeup, otherwise my expensive suit will be scrapped." "You don't know how expensive the suit is. It's the first time I'm wearing it today," Tanyuj teased with a smile, and comforted him with his right hand. "With Jian-Yuman. You didn't even know how to comfort me a few words, and even asked me to compensate you. When did I ask you to compensate? Even if I ask you to compensate, I'm afraid you can't afford it. You don't know this." Tanyuj began to talk nonsense seriously, bragging about how incredible the suit he was wearing was. The price was actually only tens of thousands of yuan, but he boasted it as if it were millions. Jian-Yuman, who was originally sad, was amused by Tanyuj's words, and she burst into tears while laughing. "You're so annoying. I have nothing to repay, or else I'll pay with my body." Jian-Yuman shed tears as she said it. Her beautiful face, because of her strange expressions and movements, had a different kind of look. Funny. Even though she is sad and crying, she is still so beautiful when she sheds tears. Pear blossoms and rain are no longer enough to describe how beautiful she looks when she cries, because her little cherry mouth is still red when she cries, her nose is also strong, and her eyes are red, but she still has a strange charm made Tanyuj's little heart tremble. Let's go to the next room." Tanyuj grinned and hugged Jian-Yuman towards the next room. "Huh?" Jian-Yuman looked confused and forgot to shed tears for a moment. "Didn't you mean compensation with meat? The whole hotel belongs to me, and you don't need to board the plane to open a room." Tanyuj waved a golden card held between his index and middle fingers with a show-off look. "This golden card is a unique all-purpose card that belongs to the hotel. It can open any room in the entire hotel. I just gave the card to Chao Xiaofeng because of his reasons. It is really convenient for him now." "Ah. You old gangster." Jian-Yuman watched Tanyuj open room 809 next door and really wanted to kick him down the stairs. Hey, let's go." Tanyuj directly beat the princess and carried Jian-Yuman into the room. He kicked the door with his right foot and closed it. He even locked it and sat down. Jian-Yuman exclaimed, hugged Tanyuj's neck tightly with both hands, and roared coquettishly. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 1002. Chapter 1002 Sweetness belonging to two people 4. Then watch this anime, it looks pretty good. Jian-Yuman pointed to a new Barbie princess movie, her eyes narrowed into slits with a smile. "No, absolutely not, let's watch the documentary." Tanyuj shook his head quickly and immediately ran to the ticket office to buy tickets. "Mr. Tang, I'm joking, don't take it seriously." Jian-Yuman rushed over. She was just joking and didn't really want to watch the movie. "Don't be impulsive. I bought it. Tanyuj waved the movie ticket in his hand with a showy look and flicked the ticket with a smile. Jian Yuman saw the title of the movie, and it turned out to be a documentary. She felt that she would die if she didn't do it. She had no interest in documentaries at all. Let's go buy some popcorn and coke. Tanyuj naturally reached out and took Jian Yuman's hand and walked in the direction of the popcorn. Jian Yuman's eyes fell on the two people's interlocked hands, and she couldn't help but smile at the corner of her mouth, and she felt like fireworks and firecrackers going off in her heart. Although they were hanging out in the hotel just now, and although she said they were bed partners, she knew clearly in her heart at that time who he was and that he was the one she loved. At this moment, the two of them were holding hands like a couple watching a movie. Even a small gesture like holding hands could bring her infinite satisfaction and happiness. The small gesture is so natural and requires the other party's consent. It seems to be the most natural thing and there is nothing strange about it. Jian Yuman was happily led into the cinema by Tanyuj. The documentary started to play. The two chose to sit on the sofa where two people were seated. There were only two pairs of men and women in the entire theater, and one of them was Tanyuj and the others. The two of them leaned close together, eating a bucket of popcorn, and watching the wonderful documentary in the movie. Within 20 minutes, Tanyuj found that the woman next to him fell asleep with popcorn in her mouth. Eyes have been closed, leaning on his shoulders. Tanyuj's eyes instantly became as gentle as water. Through the faint light of the movie screen, he looked at the beautiful face on his shoulders. Fortunately, the sofa was relatively large. He carefully adjusted their positions so that she could sleep comfortably on his lap, and continued to watch the movie and eat popcorn. Maybe Jian Yuman didn't know that the documentary was actually the movie Tanyuj wanted to watch the most, but she just watched the movie without resorting to some tricks. Of course, she also knew that she would fall asleep while watching it, so she expected it. The dark circles under her eyes were getting worse and worse these days. She must not have slept well during this period, so I used some tricks to watch the movie with her. She can go back to sleep and he can watch the documentary he wants to watch, the best of both worlds. The documentary was extremely long, a full 2.5 hours, and Jian Yuman slept for more than 2 hours. When all the people in the cinema were gone and the cinema lights turned on, Jian Yuman woke up at Tanyuj's call. Huh? Why did you call me? Jian Yuman was confused and didn't realize that he had fallen asleep while watching a movie. Tanyuj woke him up and complained with dissatisfaction. The movie is over. Is it over? Jian Yuman jumped up from his seat, scratched his head and recalled the movie scenes before falling asleep, but he had no memory at all. It only contained the content of the first 5 minutes, and he didn't remember any of the following content. Live because she was in a drowsy state at that time. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 1003. Chapter 1003 Sweetness belonging to two people 5. Tanyuj took out his handkerchief and gently wiped the corners of Jian Yuman's mouth. Jian Yuman was confused again. When her eyes saw an unknown object on the thigh of Tanyuj's suit pants, which was a little darker than the surrounding fabric. I don't know if this woman is really stupid or pretending to be stupid, but she actually laughed at Tanyuj with a smile. Mr. Tang? You didn't wet your crotch, did you? Look at your pants, she sighed in disgust, pinched her nose and took a step back. The disgust on her face didn't even need to say a word, it already made her feel the most true in her heart. Thoughts, expressed on the face. You woman, Tanyuj burst out laughing, naturally seeing the mischief in her eyes, he suddenly rushed over, grabbed Jian Yuman's hand and touched his pants. You touch it and see, it's not urine, really. Ah. "You're so dirty." Jian-yuman tried to pull her hand away in disgust. Even if she was making it up, it was an indisputable fact. "It's really not true, why don't you smell it?" Then a certain man with a conscience really pressed Jian-yuman's head and asked her to get closer to smell it. If a passerby came in at that scene, they would all blush with embarrassment. He left with a face on his face. The picture was so beautiful, it looked like two men and women doing bad things. "You gangster!" Jian-yuman realized the weirdness of the picture, turned around and slipped away from Tang Yu's hands like a loach, and quickly ran out the door. As the saying goes, out of sight is out of sight. If she can't fight him, why doesn't she know how to run away? "Jian-er, why are you running away? Did I do something wrong? If you tell me, can't I change it?" Tang Yu said deliberately. He expected that this little woman would be shy and embarrassed to talk about this outside. Deliberately grabbing her to tease you. Jian-yuman stopped after running for a certain distance and looked at Tang Yu with strange eyes. "Mr. Tang, you said today that after I pay for my flesh, you must listen to me." Jian-yuman smiled and mentioned the love words Tang Yu said when the two of them were whispering on the bed, and she said it tactfully at this moment. "That's right." Tang Yu nodded. There was nothing wrong with saying that, but why did he feel a sense of crisis? "Actually there is a problem, you are going to be in trouble," Jian-yuman thought in her heart. Subsequently, Tang Yu followed Jian-yuman to an entertainment venue, a favorite place for young people, a noble and luxurious KTV. Tang Yu's face turned blue. "No. It's not what she said it was. Don't be like this kind of joke is not fun at all." Tang Yu thought of running away when he came to the door of KTV. If he knew that what Jian-yuman was going to do next was to sing, he would definitely slip away halfway. Listening to Jian-yuman singing brought an indelible memory of sadness to his heart. Jian-yuman likes singing very much, and even installed a karaoke system in her former home. All the microphones and karaoke systems in the room are the most advanced karaoke equipment. It was a 30 square meter family KTV converted from a guest room. Tang Yu never expected that agreeing to give Jian-yuman such a room would bring him so much deep pain. Jian-yuman was pregnant at the time and couldn't go out often, so she asked him to sing at the KTV at home every day. Jian-yuman has always been hailed as a soul singer for her singing ability, which can make people completely confused and unable to remember why they are alive. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 1004. Chapter 1004. Are you back together? 1. Jian-yuman cannot just sing alone, he needs an audience. As long as other friends accompany him once, there is no possibility of agreeing next time. Jian-yuman, who was lonely and in need of an audience, took Tang Yu to be her audience every day. During that time, Tang Yu suffered extraordinary torture every day. As a last resort, he used earplugs to make his life a little better. Today, he suddenly said that he wanted to sing. He was not prepared at all. He didn't want to go, and he didn't want to damage his ears at all. He didn't expect that Jian-yuman mysteriously took him to the KTV without telling him the destination. Even if he wanted to find an excuse to leave, but he couldn't find any. Tang Yu really wanted to leave, but looking at Jian-yuman's expression, he knew that if he left now, he would be dead. Next, our soul singer sang at the top of his lungs for 3 hours. Tang Yu was passively tortured at first, but later he could only join the target of singing, which made his life a little better. He used his powerful voice to cover up Jian-yuman's voice. Although the effect was not particularly powerful, it was still better than the previous one. It will be much better for her to hold solo concerts in the beginning. It's just that he has some sad things. The consequence of singing too much with soul singers is that he will be led astray. He even doesn't know what to sing after a song, and even forgets the original standard melody. This is Jian-yuman's most beautiful song. Powerful weapon. Qian Yuman felt so relieved after singing. Especially when she saw Tanyu's despair, she felt even more happy and wanted to continue singing. Originally, Qian Yuman was going to continue singing for a while, but Li Ning called and summoned Qian Yuman away. The wedding of Li Ning and Xian Kaiping is about to begin. Many wedding matters are left to professional wedding companies. As a wedding host, you still have to personally participate in many things, such as trying on wedding dresses and taking wedding photos. Li Ning likes Qian Yuman as her goddaughter, so Qian Yuman is often the first person to think of her. Especially for a surrogate bride, the wedding dress is such an important thing, and more people need to help look at it. We arrived at a very luxurious bridal shop. Qian Yuman was very familiar with this bridal shop. It was this bridal shop that provided Qi Lili's wedding dress. This wedding dress shop has opened many chain stores around the world and is famous for its unique design, high-quality service attitude, and luxurious prices. Xian Yingzhi, who had been waiting at the door for a long time, trotted up to her with a smile, like a cute puppy asking for a caress. "Xiao Qian, you are finally here." At the same time, his eyes were fixed on the car where Qian Yuman got off. There was a green car with a familiar face in it, and my good mood instantly dropped a bit. "Xiao Qian, are you getting back together with Mr. Tang?" Xian Yingzhi asked anxiously. He liked Qian Yuman and wanted to pursue her. The premise of all this at that time was that she was single. If she had other partners, he might still be able to compete with her. If it was Tang Yuzhi, the husband Qian Yuman once loved deeply, he wouldn't be confident that he could win against him. "What are you talking about? We are just friends. Have you forgotten that we are childhood sweethearts who grew up together? Even if we don't become husband and wife, our childhood love is still there." Qian Yuman chuckled, but in fact, she knew very well that she didn't have any relationship at all. He really regarded Tang Yuzhi as a friend. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 1005. Chapter 1005. Are you back together? 2. What are you talking about? We are just friends. Have you forgotten that we are childhood sweethearts who grew up together? Even if we don't become husband and wife, our childhood love is still there. Qian Yuman chuckled, but in fact, she knew very well that she didn't have any relationship at all. He really regarded Tang Yuzhi as a friend. Plus they were rolling around on the same bed this morning. Are they really just friends? In fact, it should be said that he is a bed partner. Really, after receiving Qian Yuman's confirmation, Xian Yingzhi's eyes instantly lit up and he returned to his energetic look. "It's okay if we don't get back together. If we don't get back together, he still has a chance. Let's go, godmother is waiting for us." Qian Yuman smiled and tugged on Xian Yingzhi's clothes and strode into the bridal shop. When Qian Yuman saw Li Ning, she had already put on her first wedding dress. This wedding dress had been designed a long time ago and was just being modified. For the wedding, Li Ning prepared 5 sets of wedding dresses. Each set was so perfect that she didn't know which one to choose, so she pulled Qian Yuman over for reference. "Manman, you're here." Li Ning, wearing a snow-white wedding dress, stood there and smiled softly because she saw Qian Yuman's eyes smiling like a crescent moon and waving to Qian Yuman. Qian Yuman immediately walked over and looked around. Xian Yuanxuan, who was wearing a white suit, was also there, and there was a strange young woman standing with Xian Yuanxuan. At the same time, there was a woman, Qian Yuman, who also had a relationship with her. She was the lady who had dinner with Li Ning last time when she met her. She was sitting on the sofa and looking at her. Qian Yuman walked up to Li Ning and stared at her beautiful wedding dress, with a trace of envy flashing in her eyes. When she got married to Tang Yuzhi, she didn't wear a wedding dress, and she never took wedding photos, almost never. Although she tried it on twice, once when her uncle forced her to get married, and once when she tried on the wedding dress on behalf of her sister. In a real sense, she had never worn a wedding dress, and she couldn't help but envy Li Ning. "Godmother," Qian Yuman shouted sweetly. "Ning isn't this the little girl who came to see her mother last time?" Mrs. Li looked at Qian Yuman and then at Li Ning with interest, her eyes narrowed and her smile was ambiguous. "Don't think too much. I'm not telling you about me. I recently recognized a goddaughter. This is my goddaughter Qian Yuman." Li Ning lovingly grabbed Qian Yuman's hand and introduced Qian Yuman to her friends. "Oh. So this is your goddaughter, is it really just a goddaughter?" Mrs. Li smiled meaningfully for a few seconds, and then immediately laughed heartily. She was just joking to tease Li Ning, and Li Ning naturally wouldn't take it seriously. "Heart. Manman, do you think my wedding dress is beautiful?" Li Ning showed her wedding dress and waited for Qian Yuman's comment. Qian Yuman nodded sharply in praise. "It's very beautiful, really. Uncle Xian is really willing to spend money. This wedding dress is absolutely expensive. At the same time, it can be seen how important Li Ning is in his heart. When he reaches middle age, he often doesn't even know how to hold a wedding. At that time, he was willing to spend a lot of money on a wedding dress just to give Li Ning a perfect wedding." Li Ning waved to Xian Ying again, and upon receiving the call from Li Ning's new mother, Xian Ying trotted over quickly, smiling like a child. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 1006. Chapter 1006 Car Accident 1. Li Ning waved to Xian Ying again, and upon receiving the call from Li Ning's new mother, Xian Ying trotted over quickly, smiling like a child. A smile flashed in Li Ning's eyes. She grabbed Xian Ying's hand, then Qian Yuman's hand, and asked Qian Yuman with a smile. "Manman, I wonder if you would like to be my bridesmaid." "Huh?" Qian Yuman was slightly surprised, then shook his head with a smile. "Godmother, let me be your bridesmaid." "Don't you already have a bridesmaid?" She looked at the woman standing with Xian Yuanxun, remembering that Xian Yuanxun was Li Ning's best man, and the woman next to him was the bridesmaid. At this moment, they were wearing the attire of the best man and bridesmaid. Why did they suddenly ask her to be their best man and bridesmaid? It's just a couple. Now I want you and Ying to be my second pair of bridesmaids. It's not that I know only a few people, but I want to gather 6 people to form a bridesmaid group, Li Ning said with a smile, looking at her. Holding Qian Yuman's hand, he persuaded Qian Yuman to agree to him. Qian Yuman shook her head quickly, her eyes darkening slightly. "Godmother, it's not that I don't want to be your bridesmaid, but that I can't be. I actually had a marriage before and am a divorced woman. That's why I don't agree to be your bridesmaid. After all, no one will ask for one divorced woman as bridesmaid. Many people think this is an unlucky thing and will not invite a divorced woman to be a bridesmaid, for fear that the newlyweds will be overpowered by her." Li Ning opened her mouth in slight surprise when she heard the reason for Qian Yuman's refusal. Then she looked at Xian Ying and asked with her eyes why this guy didn't tell her before. Li Ning and Qian Yuman haven't known each other long enough, so they don't know that Qian Yuman has ever been married. After all, Qian Yuman is only a 24-year-old young woman. It's unbelievable that she has already experienced a failed marriage. "Manman, I forgive my godmother for reminding you of unhappy things." Li Ning looked guilty. Since Qian Yuman had said so, she would no longer force Qian Yuman to be her bridesmaid. If Qian Yuman had not had a failed marriage, she would definitely use various words to persuade Qian Yuman to be her bridesmaid. After learning that Qian Yuman was divorced, even if she insisted on Qian Yuman being a bridesmaid, she was afraid that others would object, so she stopped doing things that made things difficult for others. It doesn't matter. There's nothing wrong with mentioning a failed marriage. After all, it's all my life experience. She has to face the things she has experienced intuitively. Covering up is just an escape. Only the most direct face can be faced. Yes, you can be calm. Let's not talk about this anymore. Let's look at the other 4 sets for me and choose 3 sets for the wedding. Li Ning smiled and patted the back of Qian Yuman's hand. She stopped talking about the previous topic and put the question again. On the issue of wedding dresses. Li Ning went in to change into the second set, while Qian Yuman stood aside waiting for her to come out. Xian Yuanxun came over, stood beside Qian Yimansi, and asked in a low voice. You said you had a failed marriage before. Why? Qian Yuman smiled calmly and stared at Xian Yuanxun with her small eyes. Why, even brother Xian is curious about me. Did you divorce Tangyuj because of his loveliness? When Xian Yuanxun met Qian Yuman for the first time, he knew that she was Tangyuj's wife. He didn't know anything about what happened between them. Not sure either. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 1007. Chapter 1007 Car Accident 2. Did you divorce Tangyuj because of his loveliness? When Xian Yuanxun met Qian Yuman for the first time, he knew that she was Tangyuj's wife. He didn't know anything about what happened between them. Not sure either. No way, it's not this. Is that because you are flirting? Xian Yuanxun joked seriously. Qian Yuman was instantly amused by Xian Yuanxun's hypothesis, waved her hand and said with a smile. Why are there so many troubles? It's just because of some things that we found that we are not suitable for each other, Qian Yuman said lightly. In fact, she still can't let go of what happened a few years ago, especially now that her relationship with Tangyuj is still very serious. The two of them seem to be getting along harmoniously now, but neither dares to touch that past experience, which is a flashpoint for them. Only by mutual understanding and not mentioning it can their current relationship be harmonious. You are still young and very beautiful. You don't have to worry about finding a good husband. If you are interested now, I can introduce some of my friends to you. The person I can find for you must be reliable, at least he looks better than Tangyuj. Much more reliable, Xian Yuanxun said seriously, already planning to be a matchmaker for her. Even if Qian Yuman downplayed that he was not suitable, in the eyes of Xian Yuanxun at that time, it must be something that Tangyuj did not do well. Tangyuj was too beautiful. He was surrounded by a group of women wherever he went, and he looked like a playboy. Therefore, Xian Yuanxun had already labeled Tangyuj as a playboy, and he even thought that the reason why Qian Yuman divorced him was because she couldn't stand his playboy. Of course Qian Yuman did not expect that Xian Yuanxun had completely misunderstood. If he knew that he missed Tangyuj so much, he would definitely defend poor Mr. Tang. Trying on wedding dresses is also very tiring. After all the hard work, Li Ning was exhausted. With the help of Qian Yuman, she finally selected 3 sets of wedding dresses that were most suitable for Li Ning. In order to thank Qian Yuman, Li Ning once again invited Qian Yuman to visit Xian's house. Of course, the happiest person was Xian Yingzhi. The two of them stood at the intersection waiting for the car. Xian Yingzhi went to pick up the car. Li Ning and Qian Yuman stood together and talked about some interesting things. Li Ning suddenly changed the subject and brought it to an embarrassing topic. Manman, have you ever thought about falling in love again, or finding a suitable marriage partner to cultivate a relationship? I have no idea about this at the moment. As far as her unclear and awkward relationship with Tangyuj is concerned, she should stop harming young women and men. I think you can consider it. Although you have been through a marriage, in fact you are only a young woman under the age of 25. You cannot give up on seeking true love because of past failures. Qian Yuman nodded naturally. Yes, understand. It's just, Qian Yuman looked at Li Ning's gentle face and narrowed her eyes dangerously. Godmother, You don't want to find a partner for me, do you? Li Ning smiled brightly and nodded in acquiescence. For it. Today everyone wants to be her matchmaker. Does she look like a woman who can't get married? Or does she hate getting married written all over her face? Qian Yuman sighed deeply and shook Li Ning's hand, first thanking her and then expressing her thoughts. Godmother, what are you talking about? I don't plan to consider emotional issues in recent years, so I won't bother you. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 1008. Chapter 1008 Car Accident 3. How is this trouble? You have accepted me as your godmother, and you are my daughter. As a mother, you want to see your daughter happy. What's wrong with this? I just want to see you happy now. Li Ning held her hands. Holding Qian Yuman's hand, she spoke her thoughts sincerely. Li Ning's words and staring at Qian Xian's identical face gave Qian Yuman the illusion that she was her mother. Just a simple sentence, Qian Yuman was so moved that she couldn't help but blush. Look, I was moved to tears. Qian Yuman wiped her wet eyes and sniffed, feeling moved by Li Ning's words. Manman, what do you think of my Yingzhi? He is successful in his career, kind and simple, and full of energy every day. Li Ning was really prepared to be a matchmaker, and she actually brought out all the Yingzhis. Li Ning had been asked by Xian Yingzhi before, and she even confessed that she had fallen in love with Qian Yuman recently. Knowing that Xian Yingzhi liked Qian Yuman, Li Ning was naturally very happy. If her goddaughter became her daughter-in-law, this would not be a close relationship. Come on, kiss me. Under Xian Yingzhi's request, Li Ning had one more task, to find an opportunity to win over Qian Yuman and successfully sell Xian Yingzhi to her. Qian Yuman laughed rudely at Li Ning's suggestion, shaking her head and making a dumbfounded expression. Godmother, please don't mess around with us. I treat little Yingzhi like a younger brother. You see, we don't match each other on the outside at all. I'm at a disadvantage when I stand next to him. He looks old. After several years of age, when I introduce it to friends, they will tease me that I am an old man who eats young grass, and he only eats underage people. After Qian Yuman said this, she was amused by her own humor. The picture was so beautiful that she didn't even need to think carefully to make her laugh. Really not considering it, Li Ning couldn't help but confirm again. Qian Yuman nodded his head. Not at all. Xian Yingzhi might as well be a cute little brother, or be a boyfriend or husband, so forget it. Alas, poor Yingzhi. Li Ning sighed and stopped trying to persuade Qian Yuman whether to consider Xian Yingzhi. At least now he has mentioned Xian Yingzhi in front of her. As for the follow-up questions, it depends on Xian Yingzhi's ability. Xian Yuanxun, who was silently eavesdropping on the side, felt deeply sorry for Xian Yingzhi. In Manman's heart, you are just like a younger brother. Brother, you said you failed, you finally fell in love with a woman, but in the end, she only regarded you as a younger brother. At this moment, Xian Yuanxun didn't envy Xian Yingzhi at all. He once envied Xian Yingzhi's face. He would often be favored by beauties and beauties. Although he was already 25 years old, many people still regarded him as a teenager and bought movies. Tickets are available at student prices, and I don't know how many benefits there are. The key is not to look old. After he is 30 years old, he still looks like a young man. How many women want to remain childlike? Now he discovered that this childlike face is still suitable for women, and men sometimes make him lose marriage. I finally understand why Xian Yingzhi has been single for so many years. His appearance is really a disadvantage. You can't just fall in love with a high school student, nor can you fall in love with someone of the same age, because it seems like the woman is taking the young, and anyway, there is disharmony in all aspects. At this moment, a car was speeding down the road, and it hit Qian Yuman and Li Ning crazily. Li Ning and Qian Yuman were so happy talking that they didn't even notice that a car was driving towards them crazily behind them. Friends who have read this article, remember to build a building to grab the red envelopes for the new year. The comment area of the post is pinned to the top. Monthly tickets and recommended votes are coming in. Wow! End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 1009. Chapter 1009 Car Accident 4. Xian Ying's car had already driven over. Qian Yuman and Li Ning walked towards Xian Ying's car, and the boy's car drove past. At this moment, a car was speeding down the road, and it hit Qian Yuman and Li Ning crazily. Li Ning and Qian Yuman were so happy talking that they didn't even notice that a car was driving towards them crazily behind them. Xian Yuanxun, who was walking behind them, saw it, and his face instantly faded. It happened so suddenly that he didn't even have time to make a sound to tell them to get away. He rushed over quickly, knocking his mother and Qian Yuman away. Then he turned over and jumped away, but in the end he was still half a beat too slow. The car grazed his calf and then knocked his body into the flower bed beside him. Everything happened too suddenly. Qian Yuman and Li Ning were suddenly pushed away and fell to the ground. Then a car sped past them. Within a few seconds, the car sped away and disappeared from sight. Then they saw the situation of Xian Yuanxun. Xian Yuanxun was hit by the impact of the car and hit the flower bed. It was such an unlucky coincidence that the edge of the flower bed was broken, and his aorta hit him, causing him to bleed instantly. When Qian Yuman saw it, the scene he saw was Xian Yuanxun lying in a pool of blood, having difficulty getting up from the ground. The blood continued to flow down his thigh, which was shocking. Brother, Xian Ying saw the scene and rushed down frantically. When Li Ning saw this scene, she sat there dumbly, with a look of horror on her face and didn't know how to react. Qian Yuman also ran over quickly. In the past minute, she had already called an ambulance. Brother Xian, please be patient, the ambulance will be here soon. Qian Yuman's little face was wrinkled, and he held a handkerchief to cover the place where he was bleeding. I'm fine. Xian Yuanxun was obviously very weak, but he couldn't help but comfort everyone. His condition is known to himself, it is not very bad, and no one should die. It's just that there's a lot of blood, and there's a sprain on my foot, so I'm afraid I won't be able to stand up. The ambulance came quickly, and Qian Yuman was put into the ambulance in less than 10 minutes. Li Ning rushed over with the car. Qian Yuman took a car and rushed to the hospital with Xian Ying. Of course, the perpetrator would never let go. Xian Ying had already asked people to investigate which did it. The other party obviously did it on purpose. Qian Yuman and Li Ning were walking on the edge of the road. The other party's speed was a little too fast, far exceeding the speed limit on this section of the road. Fortunately, Xian Yuanxun acted quickly, otherwise the car would have really hit them, which would have been a disaster. Fortunately, everything is not worse, but unfortunately Xian Yuanxun is being rescued in the emergency room. Xian Ying grimaced with remorse. It's all because of my lack of driving skills. I drove more than 30 meters too far. If the car had stopped in front of you, this incident would not have happened, and I wouldn't have rescued you inside. Xian Ying really blamed himself. He had a sad face all the way and looked like he would cry at any time. The pitiful look was very heart-wrenching, which also made Qian Yuman feel distressed as she walked over to hug her and comfort her softly. It's okay. The situation is not very bad. You don't have to blame yourself. The other party obviously did it intentionally. This kind of thing can be avoided in the first year of junior high school, but not in the 5th day of junior high school. Our primary purpose now is to arrest the person, not to blame ourselves. Understand? Xian Ying nodded to express his understanding, but he still felt so uncomfortable and wanted to cry. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 1010. Chapter 1010 Car Accident 5. Xian Ying nodded to express his understanding, but he still felt so uncomfortable and wanted to cry. Li Ning's face was always as pale as snow. She stood at the door of the emergency room crying, looking at the closed emergency room from time to time. A nurse came out, and Li Ning immediately surrounded her. "How is it? How is my son doing? Which of you are family members of the injured?" The patient's aorta ruptured and he lost a lot of blood. His blood type was Rh negative at the time, and our hospital did not have it in stock. "I, draw my blood, I am his mother." Li Ning stretched out her arm and asked the doctor to draw his blood. The doctor took a look at Li Ning's thin body and prepared to use Li Ning's blood to save people, no matter how many things happened. Qian Yuman, who was standing aside, walked over, patted her chest and said, "I also have Rh negative blood type, so you should use mine." "Godmother, you are already weak, so let me do it." Li Ning wanted to say it was okay, but finally gave up. The most important thing now is to save her son. As Qian Yuman said, she is relatively weak and has taken a lot of medicine during this period. Her blood may not even be suitable for blood transfusion. "Manman, thank you so much." Li Ning cried and thanked her at the same time. "Who are we?" Qian Yuman smiled brightly and immediately followed the nurse into the operating room to donate her panda blood type. When her blood slowly transferred to Xian Yuanxuan, some doubts appeared in Qian Yuman's eyes. Is this a coincidence? Both Li Ning and her son have Rh negative blood types, which are exactly the same as hers. Rh negative blood type is a rare blood type, and only a few people in 1,000 people in the world have this blood type. Not only does Li Ning look similar to her mother, but she even has the same blood type as her mother. Both her and Li Li's blood types are similar to their mothers. Is this really a coincidence? Qian Yuman couldn't help but be suspicious, but then she thought about the paternity test she got in the morning, which clearly showed that they had no blood relationship at all. Maybe this is a coincidence. Unfortunately, there is no book about it. Coincidences happen frequently in the world. It is not surprising that there is another person with a similar blood type. This idea flashed through Qian Yuman's mind, and he didn't stick to it until the end. After all, the paternity test results were there, and any more doubts were just random thoughts. He didn't want to cause so many troubles for himself. She should let go and treat Li Ning's godmother as an independent individual and stop treating her as a mother. Li Ning really loves herself, and she cannot take advantage of her love and treat her as another person. After a lot of blood transfusions, Qian Yuman was still very weak when she walked out. The doctor gave her a bottle of milk, and she sat on a chair and waited for Xian Yuanxun to finish. "Qian, thank you for your hard work. When I go back in the evening, I will replenish your body and restore all your blood." "I just ordered the kitchen to prepare." Xian Ying jumped to Qian Yuman's side. "It's just a little bit of blood, it's okay. As panda blood is rare, I will donate blood at a fixed time." The rarity of panda blood made her realize that when many people in the world need blood, with her bag of blood, perhaps the other party will have a chance to survive. The more selfless dedication, the more likely one person will survive. She still likes to do this kind of selfless dedication. Not long after, Xian Kaiping came over, and Tanyuj also came over at the same time. Secretary Zhang behind Tanyuj was escorting a man behind them. End of this chapter.